The Seattle Mariners sweep the weekend. Plus, you can stop calling new manager Dan Wilson soft now. That's all coming up next on this episode of Bleav in Mariners. That's right. What's up, sports fans? What is up, Mariners fans? What a weekend series for your Seattle Mariners after dropping the opener to Texas in super disappointing fashion, basically allowing them to get the comeback victory 5-4. The Mariners putting on their City Connect uniforms and some kind of magic happening, because with that and wearing them Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and coming up on Tuesday against the Yankees, the Mariners busting out 3 wins in a row, now within range, really, really close. They could get in within range of an AL wildcard spot. We'll break that down, plus discuss why new manager Dan Wilson shook off the soft label over the weekend. Welcome in. I'm Jordon Schultz, more affectionately known as Schultzy, a Pacific Northwest talk show host from Portland, Oregon. And it's crunch time, Mariners fans. Just 12 games left in the regular season, and Seattle is still in it, fighting tooth and nail, trying to, not only see if they can secure a division spot, winning the AL West over the Houston Astros, but that's a little harder. They actually are within fighting distance of a wild card. So let's get right into it. Of course, we'll recap everything from this weekend, as well as give Dan Wilson some props and look forward to what the Mariners are going to be doing for their final 12 games and who they're playing and what you think they're going to be able to do for the rest of the regular season. And I got to say, wow, that Sunday victory, 7-0 win for Seattle. We'll get into all kinds of props for everybody on the offense, but really, I got to take a quick moment to focus on the performance by George Kirby and the rest of the Mariners pitching staff for that game. Thornton and Bizzardo coming in, not allowing a hit after Kirby only allowed one. And with that, the Mariners actually only faced 27 hitters, 27 up and 27 down. Mariners PR putting out this tweet that they had faced the minimum batters allowed, 27, for the first time since Felix Hernandez's perfect game on August 15th, 2012 versus Tampa Bay. So obviously the pitching has been showing up all season. Really good to see such a strong performance, though, when it counts. And it really does kind of keep giving Mariners fans like me hope. You know, I'm kind of sitting there last week, kind of Thursday night, feeling like that bubble really has popped. The Mariners playoff chances really are pretty much toast. It was down to like 4.5, 4.3%. But all of a sudden, after this weekend series, you're wondering, once again, can the Mariners sneak into the playoffs? Just 2.5 games out of that final AL wildcard spot with 12 remaining. Well, according to Fangraphs now, it is up to an 8.3% chance. So Seattle's chances for the playoffs essentially doubling, and with those 3 wins over Texas and 12 remaining, with 3 against the Houston Astros, by the way, which we'll talk about here in a second, the Mariners really do control their own destiny, or at least mostly. They've actually got an opportunity with some wins here to sneak into the playoffs. So here's where things stand as of when I'm taping this podcast Monday morning. The Mariners sitting at 77-73, 2.5, of course, back of the Minnesota Twins for the final AL wildcard spot. They are fighting other teams, though. The Twins holding it, but the Mariners tied with the Detroit Tigers, being 2.5 games out as well, and kind of nipping at their heels, but sort of out of it, but not quite, are the Boston Red Sox at 4.5 games out. Now, of course, it's actually not just 2.5 games for Seattle. It would be a 3.5 game, or 3 games, technically, one that the Mariners would needed to get past the Twins with record-wise, because they do not hold the tiebreaker against the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota holds that tiebreaker over Seattle. So essentially, they are not 2.5 back. They are 3.5 back, or 3 games back in the race. Not impossible to overcome, but of course, it means that every game counts, and they've got a shot, 3.5% chance, according to Fangraphs, the Mariners do, of winning the division, and that is still a chance there available for them, because Seattle has those next 3 games in their road trip against the Houston Astros coming up after they face off against Texas. They've basically got the New York Yankees at T-Mobile Park for 3, then they hit the road for a 6-game road trip against the Texas Rangers once again, and against the Houston Astros. And essentially, if you're sitting by September 23rd, a week from taping of this podcast, with a 2 or 3 game gap behind the Houston Astros, it's theoretically possible for Seattle to tie the division going in to the final series of the regular season. So we'll get into that a little bit more later on, but it is going to be intense. The Minnesota Twins, meanwhile, in the wild card, feel like they're giving the Seattle Mariners a little bit of an opening. They have only gone 7-13 in their last 20 games. But of course, Seattle really just hitting amazingly lately, like hot, red hot, out of their booties. But of course, they really just need to stay at that level if they do want to make the playoffs. And hey, that's what they've been doing. That's what they've needed to do. And it seems like that they've turned something around. So Edgar Martinez able to come in and, I don't know, put some like secret stuff from Space Jam in the Mariners Kool-Aid or something. Whatever he's doing, the Mariners are hitting out of their booties. And this recent surge, I don't know if you want to say it's thanks to the hitting. It could be thanks to the City Connect jerseys. The Mariners now 15-1 while wearing that City Connect jersey, and it has Seattle right back in contention. It's just unbelievable. And over the last 11 games, the Seattle Mariners have won 8, a span of 8-3, and that's the momentum you need to get into the playoffs. And that offense, man, thankfully turning from a sore spot to a bright spot. Listen to this. Since September 4th, Seattle has been leading MLB in nearly every offensive category. First in runs scored with 67, first in team batting average at 292, first in hits, and that's 112 total, first in OPS with an 8.58. That is a massive turnaround for a team that ranked near the bottom of the league offensively for much of the year. Thanks to Mariners PR for putting those stats out. And I don't know if you want to like put it on a specific player, but I think when you start, with what exactly has vaulted the Mariners offense, at least like guys in the lineup wise, we've talked about Edgar and his effect on it, but you got to start with Julio Rodriguez. We've been saying all season, at least I've been saying before I hosted this podcast, really started later in the year, but you've been hearing analysts saying it as Julio goes, the Mariners go, and he's been on fire. Seems like the Mariners have been on fire right with him. A couple of episodes ago, we're hitting on some really good stats of batters that have basically had a massive turnaround under Edgar Martinez. Julio Rodriguez really leading the charge there. I mean, 2 home runs, basically like copy-paste home runs on Friday and Saturday night into the upper deck of left field. Seemingly, Julio's swing really is back. I think in that stretch of games, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he had 6 or 7 straight hits. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then you see the last few games for him, his splits looking pretty good as well. Last 15 games, batting .318, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, 5 base on balls, slugging percentage of .500, on base percentage of .356. Julio's been that force in the top to the middle of the lineup. I love him batting second, actually. So he's actually got some really good numbers if you look at his splits when he bats fourth. But I love Dan Wilson slotting him in at the number 2 spot in the lineup, especially with Victor Robles hitting as hot as he is. But really, one of the big turnarounds that we saw this weekend happening, this last weekend against the Rangers, was for Randy Arozarena. He hit his 20th home run of the season Sunday. Also marked a 2020 season for him with that home run for the 4th year in a row. He also had the walk-off hit on Saturday. I think I said in my last podcast or the podcast before that, maybe Randy's not going to be here next year. Doesn't necessarily like the Seattle Mariners, not necessarily enjoying Seattle. Well, seems like that's all out the window because his ability to produce now in Seattle seemingly has kind of silenced any of my questions about him being comfortable here. So good job to Randy, man. Love to see that. And now hopeful going forward that Seattle really with a very potent outfield combination of Julio Rodriguez, Victor Robles, and Randy Arozarena. You hope that can be their outfield for at least like the next 5-6 seasons. Although Arozarena is scheduled to make 11 $12 million bucks-ish in arbitration next year, and you wonder if that's going to be too expensive for the Seattle Mariners. You just wonder. Their payroll has not gotten higher than 150, 160-ish million in the last few seasons, and they're going to have to spend more money on everybody than they are this season. So interesting to see how they're going to kind of subtract, from other areas of the team if they did want to keep Randy and be able to pay him. And another guy that's actually going to start getting more expensive soon, but has also been really, really hot as of late is Cal Raleigh. I would say, steady with the production all season long minus his average, but he's hitting 30 home runs. It's amazing for a Mariners catcher and any catcher, really. The consistency defensively behind the plate, as well as his ability to throw out base runners. I mean, he has like a 31% caught stealing clip. That is, I think, good for second or third best in the league. Just that complete player along with that offensive production in the 3-4 hole that you need. And let's face it, having a 30 home run catcher, that's a pretty rare thing in Major League Baseball, right? That's not something that a lot of teams have. So you really can lean on that if you're Dan Wilson and really be excited that hopefully going forward now, Cal Raleigh has entrenched himself in Mariners culture enough to where they are just foaming at the mouth to sign him to an extension. They gotta get him signed yesterday. And then, of course, Victor Robles. Man, you got to highlight his baseball god play at this point. Gary Hill putting this one out, Mariners broadcaster, on a tweet. His average in September is .463, good for first in the majors. On base percentage, .549, good for first in the majors. WRC plus of .238, which is good for third in the majors. And then 8 stolen bases, tied for first in the majors in September. Mariners PR putting out another tweet, highest batting average in MLB since August 17th. Victor Robles, the leader at the top of that list with a .443 average over the likes of Luis Arias and Zach McKinstry and Yandy Diaz, as well as Oakland's Lawrence Butler, who has been very hot as of late. Since June 14th, he's been hitting .339 with a .406 on base percentage, 30 runs, 25 stolen bases. And he has been caught stealing 0 times this season. 25 stolen bases, 0 caught stealings. He's actually the only person in Major League Baseball with 20 or more steals that hasn't been caught at all on the base paths. And then check this out. Top 5 hitters. This one was put out by Peter Rappel. Top 5 hitters in the last 30 days is a wild list, is what he says. But the 2 leaders on it are Seattle Mariners. Victor Robles with a .209 WRC plus. And then right at his heels, Luke Raley, Mariners first baseman outfielder with a .201 WRC plus, setting a career high for homers with 20 for him recently over the weekend. So really, really nice to see the offense just exploding. The run production that we've seen now, the average runs per game, it's up to almost 5 for the Mariners. They are hitting out of their booties. They are confident at the plate. They are actually swinging at fastballs. Their approach has just changed so much. And it's so nice to see. And you know what? I don't care that I still have hope. Before, I felt like it was just kind of a giant tease with a very mediocre team, at least at the plate, kind of trudging through the season and giving you just enough hope. But now, after this weekend series against Texas, I am all in again on the Seattle Mariners. And I have eons of hope. And honestly, I think that they have more than a 10% chance to make the playoffs, and eons of hope that they will make the playoffs, because they are so hot at the plate. And before we wrap this weekend up, I did want to highlight how much I love to see Dan Wilson out there arguing for Justin Turner. It was Saturday night in the 5th inning, and it was a terrible strike 3 call that Justin Turner had to endure from umpire Bill Miller. It wasn't even close to the strike zone. Didn't even look like it clipped the strike zone. I don't know if it was like a changeup or a slider, but it ended up hitting low and away. And Turner laid off of it because he had 2 strikes. And he's like, yeah, way. Not even close. But Bill Miller rang him up to the point where Justin Turner, you could hear him shouting into the mic, no, you see where that was? That's not a strike, is basically what the contents of the conversation were after that. Thankfully, Dan Wilson able to come out, and you saw, and to keep Justin Turner from getting ejected, you saw Dan Wilson angry. A lot of Mariners fans that have worried, oh, Danny's kind of soft. He's known as the nice guy in the organization. He's just a good old boy catcher. Well, that's true to a point. Dan Wilson is one of the nicest players in Major League history and probably one of the nicest people in, the history of the Mariners organization. But he is a Major League manager, right? He knows that he's going to have some fire, go out, have some arguments, get pissed and throw a little dirt in the umpires' faces, not literally, but verbally. And he played for one of the best managers ever at doing that in Lou Piniella. So I'm sure he knows how to argue. And on top of that, y'all, dude had to pitch with some pretty crazy guys, or excuse me, catch for some crazy guys. Randy Johnson being at the top of that list. Dude looked like one of the most angry MFers in Major League Baseball in his time in the league. And Dan Wilson was able to command that presence with Randy, able to get that respect from Randy Johnson, not only from Randy, but from the rest of the baseball pitching staff. All through the 90s and 2000s, Dan Wilson was lauded as one of the best catchers for pitchers in the league. And it's because he knows how to communicate with guys. He knows how to build personal relationships, but more importantly, he knows boundaries. He knows like when he needs to step up and be the leader. He knows when he needs to tell a pitcher to shut up. You've kind of been hearing Cal Raleigh. Pitchers are too scared of Cal Raleigh sometimes after they shake him off to shake him off again because Cal's looking at them, kind of staring them down like, yo, throw this pitch, bro. That's the way this at-bat's going to go. Listen to me or else. And I know Dan Wilson commanded that same presence. So for people that were saying, when Danny got the job, that, he's just going to be a yes man for Dipoto. He's going to bend over and just be a soft whatever for the front office and everyone in the Mariners organization that wants to continue the same output and same message that they have the last 2 years. Absolutely not. No, you see the fire from Dan Wilson, and I guarantee you he's going to be out there again, and he's going to be angrier because he needs to be, and it's going to be awesome. Dan Wilson is the perfect person to be the Seattle Mariners manager. And on that strike call, by the way, I did want to highlight that according to umpire scorecards on Twitter or X or whatever, it wasn't even a strike. Bill Miller's accuracy of strikes called was actually only 83%. So not that great. And rightfully so, Dan Wilson should have been out there arguing for Justin Turner. Excited to see that going forward. All right, let's look ahead to the final 12 games of the Mariners regular season. Of course, it is going to define, I think, how we look back on this season, really, these final 12 games, this sprint at this point. First, of course, the 3-game series against the New York Yankees at home, leading the AL East. So, yeah, this is going to be tough for Seattle. They've got to face a very, very hot lineup, back-to-back jacks. I am scared of seeing from Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, but the Mariners have played good teams well at times. They just got to hit. That's really the caveat. If they don't hit, then the Yankees scoring 2 runs are going to beat them. It's not about, the pitchers giving up, 3, 4, 5 runs a game. It's going to happen, especially to teams like the Yankees. It's if hitters can actually show up and give pitchers run support and score a few runs, because against a team like the Yankees, pitching and hitting have to be perfect. They just gotta be. So three games against the Yankees at T-Mobile Park. That's going to be such a fun series. Hope everybody is going to be going to that, or at least watching it now that the Mariners are only 2.5 out of the wild card. Of course, then they hit the road for 6 games, 3 against the Texas Rangers, and they have nothing left to play for, right? So I would expect the Mariners. You're kind of hoping like the Mariners can win the series against the Yankees, so 2-1. And then they can sweep the Texas Rangers. So that's another 3. So that's 5-1. And then those 3 games coming up against the Houston Astros on the 23rd after a 5-1 record, hopefully would theoretically set you up for being within 3 or 2 of the Astros and keep you within 2.5 of the wild card, if not get you up a couple of more spots, especially since the Twins are so bad, 7-13 in their last 20 games. And then, of course, finally, they close the season out with 3 against the Oakland Athletics. They've been one of the best teams in the league since the All-Star break, so don't expect them to roll over. Oakland, nothing to sneeze at with Lawrence Butler, with Brent Rooker, with Shea Langoliers, with J.J. Bleday. They've got good hitters. They've actually got talent. And every one of those 12 games is going to be a playoff game for the Seattle Mariners. And it's going to feel like it watching it, and those players better be acting like it's playoff time, because it's literally at this point a must win for every single game. And that is kind of the key. It is a must win for every single game, but the key here for the Seattle Mariners is to try to just take it one game at a time. All right, we won the day. Yeah, we got these City Connect uniforms on. Now we get to tomorrow. it's easy to kind of get caught up looking ahead, see if they're going to get to the playoffs, but at least as players. But at the end of the day, if they can focus on the game that they are playing and just winning the game in front of them, there is no reason they can't be in the mix in October. Yes, roller coaster of a season. I get it, Mariners fans. I'm with you. I'll be the first to admit it. But darn it, wouldn't it be such a fun final stretch and just super exciting if the Mariners could turn around and just get their fans to buckle up and enjoy a ride into the playoffs. All right, 2.5 back from the wild card. But the way that they've been playing and with the opportunity to go head to head with the Astros, the postseason is in reach. I Bleav it. I am so excited, Mariners fans. And that's going to do it for this episode of Bleav in Mariners. Make sure you give the podcast a 5-star rating and review. And if you're watching on YouTube on our channel, Bleav in Mariners there, subscribe to the channel, like the video, would love a comment. Let me know what you think of the show. If you hate it, if you love it, I would love to see or hear things that I need to improve on as well. And also, we are out to a former Seattle Mariner. Would love to bring on a regular co-host, somebody that has played the game of baseball at the professional level, been in the clubhouse for the Mariners, really can offer different perspective than me. So if you are a former Mariners player listening to the podcast, or if you know a former Mariners player that wants a media opportunity, hit me up on Twitter. Contact me, contact Bleav, and we will make it happen. All right. Good luck, Mariners fans. Hopefully we can all enjoy a couple of wins against the New York Yankees. Going to be tough, especially against their loaded lineup, but I have faith, and I know y'all are going to be rooting with a lot of that Mariners teal-green faith that I have as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Bleav in Mariners. Stay safe and keep those tridents up, Mariners fans. See you soon.